Hello everyone and welcome back to Q&A Wednesday with yours truly on all things Taylor. Yay! I am so thankful for your patience and your time. I still don't fully know exactly what was happening over the last week, but I did reach out to some other YouTubers with more and less followers than me just to see kind of what was going on, and more than half of them had the same problems I did. So I don't know if it was like a site update or a verification process, you know, where they kind of delete content or go through people's, you know, channels and see if they're being respectful and whatnot. I have no idea. But since it delayed last week's Q&A Wednesday so badly, I'm so excited to have the function back to upload content to this YouTube channel. Super proud. We have had a bunch of new followers over the last week. So thank you to the 300 new subscribers to All Things Taylor, my YouTube channel. You guys are in for such a huge treat. Like, this Q&A Wednesday is pretty much an every week thing as long as I have questions. I'm going to be adding clips from my old wrestling matches, information, updates on what's happening, clips from my podcast Talks with Taeler Hendrix on russosbrand.com, and so much more. So much more. So without further ado, let's jump right into this week's questions. There was quite a few really awesome ones, and I was so super stoked about just the variety in which these questions kind of sprinkled out into. So I'm super excited. Let's get right on to it. Someone asked me what was my first ever original entrance music. Oh, first, before I get into that, I hope you guys love my new setup, by the way. I have been making do since this whole pandemic started with the restrictions and everything, and I'm finally starting to kind of, you know, get the jump on things since I can't necessarily be in my studio. And I had this really awesome interview today that I'm like super stoked about. I cannot wait for it to be released. Just so many great things in the works, so many great things. Okay, anyways, back to my original entrance music. So what's really funny is for almost the first year of my career, I never really came out to my own entrance music. It was always other people picking things for me that they had in, you know, their libraries on hand, or I was coming out to other people's entrance musics. So it was very interesting. But one of the first entrance musics I ever came out to, I was a part of a group of masked wrestlers, and I was the only one not in a mask, even though I really wanted to be. So it was really cool. It was like my first like introduction to like masked wrestling. And we came out to 10,000 Fists in the Air. Disturbed. Back to my roots. But the first entrance music I ever chose for myself on my own terms, according to my own taste for what my character was at that time, I chose I'm So Sick by Flyleaf, and it was so awesome. I felt like I was like the only girl doing that. I had a very gothy vibe, and I had these platformed boots that were like, the platform was like this big, and oh gosh, I had such a really cool gothy character with all kinds of plaid and ripped fishnet, and it was just so cool. And it's really funny because later on I transitioned into what would become Taeler Hendrix. I didn't have the name Taeler Hendrix yet at that time, and I was like this like modern pop culture hippie Goonies Never Say Die One Girl Revolution character. And it's just very interesting to see my evolution over the years in the different aspects of my personality. You know, I have a very multi-dimensional, versatile personality, and so it came out in a lot of different characters in my gimmicks throughout the years. And then to see full circle, I have sort of another goth gimmick in wrestling like almost 10 years later. So it's really kind of cool to see that transition and to experience it firsthand. Another person asked me what sort of recipes could I recommend, since I have like a little mini cooking show called Taylor's Tiny Kitchen. It really depends on, you know, allergies, stuff that you'd like to eat, your lifestyle, your time constraints. Some people are very busy. Other people, due to COVID, have a lot more time on their hands. Some things that I like that are really fun go-tos, whether you're single, a couple, family, retired, doesn't really matter, is taco salad. I have barely met anyone that does not love a good taco salad with some nacho cheese, Doritos, taco seasoning, some ground beef, and salad mixings and Catalina dressing all in one. So delicious. Such a great meal. You don't feel like, oh, after you eat it like you're in a food coma. It's fun. It can be festive. It can be pretty much at any time of the year. It's just a really great recipe. It's a fun way to spice up some parties if you're a guest, you know, after the pandemic, obviously, and you want to bring a dish but you don't have a lot of money. Taco salad is a very good way to go. Another thing that I really enjoy cooking is like a classy sort of steak with mashed potatoes, homemade garlic bread, and some vegetables. I love doing that with like a glass of wine, and wine is actually how I make the sauce and how I cook my steak. So those are two that immediately come to mind, but if you want more, just ask, because I love to cook. Especially baking. I really love to bake and decorate different desserts and stuff like that. Someone also asked me if I have any suggestions for basically improving during a pandemic. So during COVID-19, what are some things that I have done that I could recommend for others? Now, full disclaimer, these are my opinions. These are things I have done. They may or may not work for everyone, and that's okay. We're all different, right? We're all individuals. We're all unique and experience this world the same 24 hours in 7 billion different ways every single day. For me, during this whole pandemic, I really worked on self-improvement and narrowing my focus on my goals. So what does that mean? Right? Because that can mean so many different things depending on who you are and how you think, your mindset, how you approach the world, and your circumstances. So for me, I worked really hard on understanding that my circumstances do not define me. I define my circumstances. So it's what I've written in my blog. It's what I've written in articles for Fightful.com. It was actually also in, you know, an interview I did, I believe, with Disrupt magazine. And it's something I've talked a lot about on my podcast, Talks with Taeler Hendrix. Can'ts, won'ts, and don'ts. What those stand for should be entirely up to you. I can't stop until I succeed. I won't sacrifice my integrity. I don't have time to listen to other people's opinions of me. You know, you can have so many different ways of accounting for can'ts, won'ts, and don'ts. The only person that should be identifying those and what they mean to you is you. So on paper, it doesn't mean anything. You are not your circumstances. You define your circumstances. That was a very big focus so far for me during this pandemic, after all the hurdles I've overcome to be the woman that I am today. And it was so freeing and liberating. And like I always say, you have to learn to be free with your authenticity. Not everyone's going to like you. There's over 7 billion people in the world. Odds are not everyone's going to like you. So don't care. Be free. Keep your integrity and focus on what you need to do in the world, and then you'll gradually make the world a better place. Another thing I really focused on was improving myself for things like generational wealth. You know, 10 years ago, I didn't understand what that meant. I was never taught that in school, which is, believe me, I can do like an almost daily thing on all the things that as a former teacher, I would know that are not taught in school. But do not get me started on that train. Whew, I have so much I could say. But regardless, I've really focused on what generational wealth means to me personally, professionally, mentally, physically, and emotionally. So for me, I want to be debt-free. I want to overcome all of any sort of health issue that can possibly come at me. I want to be able to do that. I want to help take care of my family and so many other things. So that all comes down to knowledge, education, and generational wealth. Well, how do you do that? You're only taught about 20% of what you need to know as a human being in school. The other 80% is literally up to you. And so I've literally, not figuratively, I've literally taken that to heart to make myself more well-rounded as an individual in things that I was never really introduced to before, but I took it upon myself to find people that are and learn from them, learn from people that are in a better position than myself who have done what I want to do, which is a point actually that I bring up a lot in these Q&A videos when people ask me for advice in wrestling. And I always tell you all, do not just go to any old Joe Schmo school in East Cuddy, whatever, for $3,000. Find a school, doesn't matter how far away it is, find a school that has a reputation of excellence, that has produced what you want to do. Don't just go to any old trainer, you know. And it's the same thing in life. So I try to always learn from people that are better than me. You know, you never want to be the smartest person in the room. If you are, you're probably in the wrong room. And I love learning from people that are better than me, that actually take the time and that care, that are in complete earnestness, who want to help. And so as far as generational wealth, I've taken it upon myself to educate myself in finances, in taxes, in boosting credit scores, what that means, what that can do, how to make my money work hard for me, even while, for example, even while I'm sleeping, which means investing, you know, learning the difference between dividends, mutual funds versus index funds, and so many things that I didn't even know existed. I was like, wow, what are these words? These words are like a bunch of Scrabble winning words. What are they? What do they mean? So that's something that I've really done a lot of over the last year and a half, give or take, during this COVID pandemic. You know, there's no better time. I've also really taken it upon myself to learn more about mental health and all the different aspects that really go into mental health on a daily basis, as well as taking in personal growth in the sense of, well, I probably can't squat 275 by myself anymore like I used to, you know, lung disease and everything else. But what I can do is learn how to do crazy awesome workouts at home that don't do more damage to my body, but actually make my body better long term by respecting my body with its limitations and also its ability to heal and grow. So those are some of the many things that I have taken a lot of time to educate myself on during the pandemic. And I think that that's been a great use of my time, as well as, like I said at the beginning of this question, narrowing in on my goals, you know, becoming, you know, someday a New York Times bestselling author, you know, publishing books. You know, who thought that Taeler Hendrix would do that? I've always dreamed of it. 10 years ago, did I think I could do it? No, I wasn't around the right people. I wasn't around people that believed in me, you know, and it took me to learn that I have to believe in myself before anybody else would believe in me. And that's all a part of mental health, personal growth, and narrowing in on your goals and not allowing circumstances to define you. It's all interwoven. It's all linked. And, you know, it doesn't matter if you're at level 1 or level 100, you can still always be learning new things. And that's the biggest thing, is constantly trying to learn and make myself better, learning about dieting, learning, you know, what that word actually means from not just a food standpoint, but from a personal health standpoint. You know, diet isn't just about food and exercise. Diet is also about mental health. Diet is about cutting things from your life that are toxic to you, whether that's people, jobs, or whatever. Not everything is meant for you. You know, a sunflower does not grow in the Arctic for a reason. So I learned a lot about investing during this pandemic. I also learned how to focus more singularly on my own goals instead of what people think and say. And so that's about a lot of what I've been doing, you know, my podcast, publishing books, you know, this YouTube channel right here, and all these other really awesome projects that I can't wait to share with you guys, but I'm not allowed to yet. Okay. Have I introduced myself to anything new during COVID? That's kind of piggybacking off of that question, but I thought it was still a really good question. I really fell in love with the Beatles during this pandemic. I didn't grow up a lot listening to the Beatles. My mother hated the Beatles, so we really didn't listen to Nirvana or the Beatles in our house growing up. And I have to say that during this pandemic, I've really fallen in love with the Beatles. I listen to them almost every day now. I just love it. It just puts me on a whole different level. I also got introduced to this amazing band that I am now obsessed with, and some of my upcoming vignettes are really going to have an influence from them, is Falling in Reverse. I'm so really into rock and heavy metal music, and I'm so surprised that I'd never really heard of them before. And now I'm just obsessed. I've been listening to everything that they have ever produced, and I'm just so in love with their music. It speaks to my goth soul. So I'm super excited about them. I've really just fallen in love with their music. Oh, both the Beatles and Falling in Reverse. Something that was really cool is I'm a really big fan of Pierce the Veil, and last year one of their band members actually did like a personal video for me and sent it to me for my birthday, and he actually like manipulated one of their hit songs to be about me for my birthday, and I just thought that was so cool. I'm like, who else can really say that? I just felt, I don't know, it was really cool having people like Rose McGowan and Pierce the Veil be supportive of me. It's just life-changing, you know. But like I said, you have to learn how to believe in yourself when no one else will, and learn how to cheer for yourself in the silence when nobody else will. And that's a really big thing that I've also really focused on. Let me see. Recent inspirations. Do I have any, and why? Okay, so some recent inspirations of mine have stemmed from goals, motivation, mental health, and just learning to cut the BS and do you, so you can have a better life with everything you've ever wanted. And for me, I found a lot of inspiration in Kevin Hart and Steve Harvey. I have been listening to a lot of their stuff over the last several months, and it's amazing. You can find inspiration in so many different ways and places, and right now I've been loving some of their stuff, as well as gosh, I can't think of the name, but it was written in like the 40s or 50s. I'll have to do a whole new video and talk about that book. That book has changed a lot of people's lives. Okay. Someone asked me about a recent clip that I posted to this YouTube channel where I was wrestling Sumi Sakai in Lowell, Massachusetts for Ring of Honor, and I take a chair shot from behind. So they asked me if that chair really did clip me in the head. The answer is it didn't just clip me in the head, it bashed my brains in. And I can laugh about that now, but I certainly wasn't laughing that day, especially because my mother was in the crowd, and it's like, oh, whenever she's in the crowd, man. It's like poor Mama Hendrix. So the story behind that, and I posted not for that purpose, but because I thought it was like some really cool spots of Sumi and I working together in a live crowd, which is so missed in wrestling. Yeah, I totally missed the live crowd, even though the Thunderdome is pretty cool. But that's neither here nor there. Like just some really good wrestling. I always loved working with Sumi, and she loved working with me. She always wanted to take more and more and more of my stuff, which was, you know, a new experience for me, because not a lot of people wanted to take my stuff because, you know, they wanted to put themselves over instead of selling for me. So, what was supposed to happen was I get my chair from the outside after Sumi surprise beats me. I throw a huge, like, monsterish, like, fit, and I attack her after the fact with, like, shots and headbutt, and I throw a temper tantrum. I go out to the side of the ring. I get my chair, which is something they'd been having me do in some vignettes and some matches and so forth. So it was kind of like a slow building up thing. And I go to slide it into the ring, and what you'll notice if you watch that clip is this is so textbook. I'm about to take a chair shot to the back. And why that's so textbook is you will see me go like this. So here's my elbows. You're going to see me put my elbows in and slide the chair into the ring like this under the ropes. And why I'm doing that is I'm a wrestler who was taught to set myself up for the next thing. So if I'm selling, I'm going to sell something and move my body in such a way that I'm already pre-positioned for what I need to do next, or what I need to take next, or where I need to go. So say, for example, I take a sidewalk slam, and I know that person's going to pin me. As soon as I kick out, I'm already going to be selling either towards a corner, towards a rope, or while I was in the move before I took it, I was already looking for a roaming camera so I can sell to that camera, because that's how you work TV. Okay, so that's how I was trained to wrestle. I was trained very old school, and, you know, maximize your performance for the amount spent on that TV time. Because TV time is a lot of money. Even 30 seconds worth is a hell of a lot of money. Regardless, so I do this. I slide in the chair. Here comes Mandy Leon from behind, and she's supposed to hit me in the back. And the reason why you do this and put your elbows in front of you when the chair shot is coming from behind is because if you don't and your elbows are back too far, the metal of the chair will most likely hit your elbows, and you can shatter your elbows, which is like, done. You're out. You're out, kid. You won't even be able to pull up your own pants because your elbows will not work. So that's very textbook to protect yourself while selling, but you also don't look like you're waiting for the chair shot. You're setting yourself up. So I do this. You can see it in the footage. And then the chair shot misses my back entirely and square in the back of the head. No hand up to protect myself, nothing, because I wasn't supposed to. It was supposed to be in the back. I was concussed out of my mind. I was a sack of potatoes when she got me back into the ring. You can see I didn't even, like, I was so out of it, I didn't even take a good DDT onto the chair because I was just out of it. And then unfortunately, Sumi's moonsault, after I took the DDT onto the chair from Mandy Leon, her moonsault ended up like right on my face. So it was like, not only did I get hit in the back of the head with a chair, bash my brains in, I take a DDT on a chair to my face because my hand was like way over here and not protecting my face. I was just out of it. So my hand hits like a different part of the chair, and I'm just like, boom, face first into the chair. And then I'm waiting for this moonsault. I'm on cloud 9 probably. I don't even remember taking it. I just have seen the footage over and over. And then I get moonsaulted onto my face, and the ending of the footage is like security people or whatever, and like a pretend ice pack, because that was like a rib in the back, that it was like a joke. They like to do the ice pack thing for some reason. So yeah, I didn't just get clipped in the back of the head with that chair. I was legit like bashed my brains in. My mother was there. So awesome. not. Do I have any plans on coming back? This question was also from my YouTube channel. I never left. So people keep asking me why I retired. Did I retire? Blah, 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 blah. How come I'm not signed? The answer is I didn't retire. I have not openly said I've retired. I'm just kind of doing my thing during this pandemic. And I think that's the most anybody can do. I don't really want to wrestle during the pandemic. I want to keep everyone safe, including myself and my loved ones, as well as my fans. I would not feel right if I was the reason why a fan went to a show specifically to meet me or see me or whatever, and somehow they contracted COVID and got like dreadfully sick. Like, I can't live with that. So yeah, I'm not doing that. Now, that's not a judgment on anybody else. Everybody is free to do, you know, whatever it is they feel comfortable with. I'm doing me. Someone asked me about my favorite characters from Angel. I kind of want to say, I don't really know, actually. But I really do love Angel himself. I think he's such a complex character. So I'd probably say him or Charisma Carpenter's character, because I really identify with her, not just as an actress, but as a woman. I think she's a very strong individual who went through hell in her life and she turned it around. It made a difference. And I like that. I find that inspirational. So yay, Charisma Carpenter. Who has the hardest chops that I've ever taken? I would honestly have to say me. There's a lot of girls that they'll take one and they're like, oh, no, no. I did a battle royal at WWR, and so many girls walked away after taking only one of my overhanded chops. So it's hilarious, but I'll take it as much as I dish it. That's what I think makes me different from a lot of other women, is I'll dish it and I make sure that I take it in return, because it's a give and take. It's a performance, you know? So at some point I'll be like, all right, duck this, light me up. And I'll throw like a big haymaker sort of chop that they can easily duck, sort of telegraphed. And then I'll have them light me up. And if they're not doing it hard enough, I'll be like, harder, harder, keep going. Come on, light me up. And then I'll cut them back off, or whatever the case is for where we are in the match. If I ran the WWE, what changes would I make? This is also from my YouTube channel, so keep it going, guys. If I was in charge of WWE, I would be looking to trim the fat, so to speak. So what that means is, if I'm not using people and they haven't really done good business and their gimmicks just aren't getting over no matter what we do, we've had them for several years and it's just not really going anywhere, at that point I would say, because as a business, you need to hire people that are going to see a return for your investment, because after all, it is a business, and there's thousands upon thousands of people all over the world who dream of being WWE superstars. So if it's not working out for somebody and they've had multiple shots over a several year time, I would say trim the fat. I would also try to maximize my demographics, which basically means I would want somebody in the male and female rosters that appeal to different demographics. So what does that mean? I would want people of Latin descent, people that are African American. I would want people that are, you know, all kinds of different looks, races, ethnicities, ages, everything. Because that way I'm maximizing my appeal to the widest range of audience I possibly can, and therefore having so much representation within my product. That is also something I would do a little bit more of. I think I have a very good eye for talent, because when a company asks me, oh, what girls should we use? A lot of the girls I recommended are either now in WWE or they're doing very successful in other companies, and they didn't have those jobs beforehand. So I'm kind of just like, yeah, Taeler Hendrix got an eye for future talent. And I'm very proud of that. You know, the girl that just recently wrestled, I don't know what her WWE name is, but she was, I helped her come up with her gimmick, and she wrestled Charlotte. And she wasn't originally supposed to, and I think she's going to be a part of the India's NXT brand, I think. Sandeep, something like that. Well, she ended up wrestling Charlotte Flair, and originally when she was in California, I actually helped her come up with her gear design, her entrance, and her gimmick, and I led her in the direction of an amazing gear maker who used to make my gear, and she kind of made the vision come to life and stuff, and now she's, you know, wrestling Charlotte in WWE. So I think that's really cool. You know, I recommended Shotzi and Scarlett Bordeaux and Giselle Shaw and Kiera Hogan and quite a few other girls, and now you kind of see them all doing really really great thing. So I don't know, I think that's really cool. And that kind of piggybacks off of would I ever run my own company? I really don't want to. I'm not really focused on that. It's not really aligned with what I want to do in life as far as running a wrestling company. But other changes I would make in the WWE, I would probably cut back on the amount of pay-per-views to make the other pay-per-views mean a whole lot more. I don't think I would want more than 6 pay-per-views a year. And I would also, that also gives me more time to build up longer storylines. And I would also try to get, I would also provide education for my superstars on the presence of marketing and their own individual presence within social media. Because there's a lot of people that don't realize that they're doing damage to themselves, the WWE, and their own individual brands with how they post and how they interact on social media. So that is also something I would provide, like media training, which is something some teams in the NFL do, as well as kind of giving them a sort of built-in education, maybe at the performance center, since they already have to be there anyway, that kind of helps them with long-term, with longevity, basically, because, you know, life after WWE, what do you do? You know, if you get injured to the point where you can't wrestle anymore, what do you have to fall back on? What do you do? So I think I would also do a little bit of that, as well as trimming the fat, maximizing my demographics, and I would possibly shorten my show as well. I don't like the super long shows, especially because a lot of the WWE audience is not actually pro wrestling fans, they're entertainment fans. So I think like 20% of their shtick is independent pro wrestling fans. The rest is like reality TV and entertainment fans. So you also have to understand that and appeal to that and pivot with the market. So those are some things that I would be looking to change within the WWE. Let me see here. Am I excited about Taylor Swift re-recording her Fearless album? I think that's really cool. It kind of reminds me of that saying, if you have a book that you really love, read it at different points in your life. The story remains the same, but how you experience that story changes because your perception changes with life experience. And I think it'll be really cool to see how she approaches this old album with her re-recording it, because she's had so much more life experience since then. She's had, you know, life happen basically since she wrote that album. So I'm really excited to see how that unfolds. That was also from YouTube. Let me see here. Do I think that naming pay-per-views after specific gimmick matches hurts the pay-per-views and or the history of the matches? Yes and no. For example, if you have a TLC match and every single match is tables, ladders, and chairs, eventually you're going to get a lot of repeats every single year of the same exact spots, almost the same exact setup, almost the exact same ways. So, that kind of piggybacks off of what I would change in the WWE, and this was also from my YouTube channel. What I would do is I would kind of take away some pay-per-views, because I think there's just so many. You have Payback, Elimination Chamber, TLC, Money in the Bank, the Royal Rumble, Survivor Series, SummerSlam, WrestleMania, and so much more. There's just a lot. There's a lot. So I would kind of condense that into maybe 6. So that way you have more time to build up things and make it mean that much more. And so for me, I think the thing about gimmick pay-per-views is every single match is the same gimmick. Like if you had an entire pay-per-view that every single match was elimination chamber matches, I think that would get pretty repetitive and redundant, right? But if you have, say, the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view, but only 2 matches are that, and then everybody else is fighting their way to get into the Elimination Chamber, that to me is a lot more interesting. For a tables, ladders, and chairs, because you have more tools to use, it can stay different and evolving and exciting. So that's a little different. But yeah, that's what I would say is decrease them and be a little bit smarter with how often they reoccur. And maybe stop letting your superstars have the pay-per-view match on TV, because then there's not as much of a reason to, you know, get the pay-per-view or sit down and watch the pay-per-view if you just already saw the match, you know, on Monday Night Raw. I guess I would bring back a little, like a modernized old school, because when you go too old school, it's outdated. But if you put a modern spin, I think it works a lot better. But that's just my opinion. Do I think from the time I started to now, is there more women's wrestling? Absolutely. Hands down. When I started in like late 2006, when, oh gosh, you were lucky if there was a women's match on the show. And I was lucky in the sense that there was already girls that had been wrestling for 3 or more years, and a bunch of them were right in my hometown. So I think there was like 4 or 5 wrestlers, females, already in my hometown who were already wrestling for at least 3 years. Alicia Edwards was already wrestling. Luscious Latasha was already wrestling. Nikki Rocks was already at least 6 years in, I think, by the time I came on the scene. There was just so many women right there, whereas in the Midwest, there was almost nobody. So I was very lucky in that regard, but it also made me have to pay my dues a lot more than women do today. Like, I know girls that are on TV for like Impact Wrestling or whatever that have never set up a ring, where I set up a ring for 10 years. I carried people's bags. I did the whole dressing up, hoping to get on the show with a resume, and then I'll change out of my good clothes to put on some work clothes to set up a ring, then put my good clothes back on, hoping for the opportunity, but you leave the bag in the car so you look humble and all this other stuff. Like, I did all that carny stuff. I survived Chop Shop. I was given the opportunity to not do it, but I was like, no, if the guys are going to do it and I'm the only girl here, I'm going to earn my right to be in this ring too. Not that I got credit for it, but yeah, so I took Chop Shop. I did all of that stuff. I bought people coffee, gave people the rides to and from the airports. I did all of that to earn my way. But with that being said, I think there's like angry vets that are like, oh, why are you complaining about an action figure? Why don't you earn it? Or why are you complaining about TV time? I think it's because they had to earn it so hard that when they don't necessarily understand that things have changed and there's a lot more opportunity now than there was. But to the veterans, the kind of bitter veterans points is that with more opportunity, it came, you didn't have to necessarily work as hard or as long for it. And so people got bigger egos faster. So that's a negative to the more opportunity. However, I think what bitter veterans also need to understand is that they're a part of the reason why there's more opportunity, because if they all sucked, people would have given up on it. And clearly they didn't, because they didn't suck. So they're a part of the reason why we now have more opportunity, because they paved the way for people like me. I also had to work very, very hard too. There wasn't, you know, a women's Royal Rumble when I first started wrestling. There wasn't, you know, they had a couple all women shows, but that was about it, you know, and you were lucky if you had 2 women's matches on one card. Hallelujah. But now they have 2, 3. I mean, at one point, AEW Dynamite had 6 women's matches. That was a dream back in the day, you know, especially if it wasn't an all-women show. So there's pros and cons, but yeah, there's definitely a lot more opportunity for women now than there was, you know, 13, 14 years ago. Amazing. Okay, I feel like there was one more question here. Let me look for it really quick. Let me see here. Oh, am I excited about anything coming up? I know that you spoke about your book getting released soon. I read the Yahoo Finance article. Can you give us any recommendations? This was from my Twitter. Yes, I am super excited about publishing my 3rd book. It's like, 1, people may have thought it was a fluke. 2, they're like, oh, okay, maybe this is real. And now it's like 3, it's like, holy crap. Taeler Hendrix is on a whole new level. I was like, yeah, told you so. I'm just kidding. And I'm super excited, guys. I'm super excited. My 3rd book, my 3rd children's book is coming out very soon. And then I'm working on some other genres for books. I'm working on like a psychological thriller horror book. And I'm super excited about that. I already have the cover already made. It's just waiting for me to finish. And I'm also working on some other books as well in the fantasy genre and, in like the motivational genre, because I just have so much to say. So I'm really so excited. And getting to be on a New York Times best-selling author's podcast about my first book. And he's also from Massachusetts. That was like such an honor for me. And that was really cool, Chris Brogan. So I'm just so excited to be getting recognized that from people that have done what I want to do. So I'm kind of just, you know, in awe, and I'm so grateful and humbled, and I just have so much positivity that I want to share, because, you know, I've been to hell and back, and I've come back bigger, stronger, and better than I ever have been, and I want to share that, because I just know that it's a hard thing to do. There is no 100% guide, you know, or handbook, and life is tough. You know, life, it's like that quote, life is rough, so you got to be tough. And, you know, and for me, I want to give back as much as I gain. So it's really cool getting to do these sorts of experiences and be interviewed and have people like Yahoo Finance supporting me. Like 10 years ago, even 4 years ago, I never would have thought this was possible. I was so down, you know, I thought about just quitting entirely. And now fast forward, look at me, you know, so I'm just so blessed and grateful. So I think that as much as you get, you should also give. And that's part of the reason why I love getting to interact with my fans, and also getting recognized that from people that have done what I want to do is like As far as book recommendations, that is very interesting. I'm actually thinking about doing like a video, like a once a month video on books I recommend. I am not a fast reader. I'm a very somewhat slow reader. So I thought maybe doing books that aren't recent books and recommend them once a month, because everybody has a book club where it's like, oh, the next hottest book and all this other stuff. I kind of want to give back to other people who have already done that and kind of reintroduce books and kind of make them popular again for various different reasons. Because like I said, you can read a book, you know, first time you read it, 10 years later read it again, and it's like it's a whole different book, but it's not. It's the exact same book. What's changed is you. So I think based off of this question and how much I love to read and the fact that I am now a published author, I think I would like to do that. So definitely let me know if you guys would love that. I definitely recommend Rose McGowan's Brave. That woman has been such a positive source of inspiration for me, and she's also supported me a lot behind the scenes, which not a lot of people know about. And for me, that really helped me in a really low headspace where I thought I was alone, and it was like she was like a beacon of light for me, and it was amazing. So I highly recommend her book called Brave. There's also a book called 48 Laws of Power. I forget who wrote it, but that book was like mind-blowing, and a lot of people have read that book, so I definitely highly recommend that one as well. But for more suggestions, look out for my once a month, and I'm going to do it probably once or maybe twice a month, depending on, you know, how fast people can read, you know, and guys all got stuff going on, but it is during a pandemic, so maybe circle back to that first question about improving yourself with, you know, the 80% that you're not taught over the years in school, and making yourself a better person little by little every single day, because you would be surprised how much that changes the world outside, and you'll leave the world better than how you found it. So thank you so much for joining me on this really cool 2-week combined Q&A Wednesday episode. It has been wicked. Next week, hopefully we'll have some more questions. Yay, yay, yay. Comment below with your questions and let me know that you want it done for Q&A Wednesday. Be on the lookout for my 3rd book coming very soon to Amazon.com. It'll be joining my first 2 books. It's Not Easy Being a Sloth by Taeler Hendrix and A Fish with a Wish is Trish by Taeler Hendrix. The newest book I wrote was actually It's Not Easy Being a Sloth. Whereas A Fish with a Wish is Trish is something I started writing in the 6th grade. So it's really crazy to see, you know, my wrestling journey and for me to pick up something that I started in the 6th grade. And then Nosy Rosie and the Secret Surprise is actually my 3rd book coming very soon to Amazon.com. It'll be the 3rd installment. And I actually started writing that when I was in Impact Wrestling. And I wrote a little bit more in 2015 when I did my tryout for WWE. And then I decided just this past year to pick it back up again and finish it. And I just love it. I think it shows the depth and where I was at in life when I wrote it, and all of these things I want to introduce to children who are younger and younger, because I feel like the world would be such a better place if we start treating the next generation and give them the tools that they're going to need to make this world a better place than how we came into it. Because we all blame society, but what we refuse to acknowledge is the fact that we can blame society all we want, but we are the society. So what are we doing to change it? And for me, that's giving younger kids the tools young enough for them to harvest them to go out into the world. You know, we're not truly adults at 18, but we put so much pressure on 17 and 18-year-olds to have it all figured out when they haven't even been introduced to the world yet. You know, the world outside their safe zone. So please be on the lookout for that. Check out my article in Yahoo Finance. They've been so amazing, as well as Disrupt Magazine. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Twitter is @Taeler_Hendrix and Instagram with @TaelerHendrixROH. I'm sorry, there are fake me's on the platforms before the real me was on there, so they're different. Catch my podcast Talks with Taeler Hendrix every Tuesday on Realm Network with russosbrand.com. A monthly subscription gives you tons of content for less than an extra large cup of coffee per month. So I think that's amazing. Be on the lookout for brand new vignettes coming soon, as well as more Taeler's Tiny Kitchens and a lot more projects. So thank you so much. And also feel free to stop by and show some love on my website, taelerhendrix.net. Until next time, guys.